Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our Corporate Campus Solutions webinar today, especially right before the holiday season. I'm really excited for today's webinar because we'll kind of be covering some of the challenges that you may be facing, whether you're a higher ed organization or an enterprise, kind of managing content across multiple and several displays among different departments, different buildings, different campuses. And so today we'll be kind of going over our commercial display series, the 31 series specifically, and kind of talking about how we can solve some of those challenges. And then we also have a special guest that will be joining us from QSC that will kind of be talking about our larger ProAV integration. So really excited for that. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Make sure to drop in any of your questions in the Q&A section of the webinar. We will do our best to get to the questions at the end of the webinar. And with that, I am going to bring on our Senior Business Line Manager, Brian.
All right, thank you, Mina. I am Brian Fan, the Senior Product Manager for Non-Touch Commercial Display here at ViewSonic. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today's focus will be on the ViewSonic CDE 31 series. Right here, we have a 55-inch CDE 5531 commercial display that we're showing. Today's webinar will be focusing on this SKU plus all the features for commercial display for corporate offices, buildings, and campuses. So we can do some demonstration that will be live. We'll be focusing on the versatile connectivity, such as the HDMI, USB-C port that we have for one cable solution. And then we'll go through some software, including the AirSync casting software, plus our digital signage platform. So we have certification from third parties that would do digital signage. And we'll go over some of the remote management and also the ProAV capability on the CDE 31 series. So let's get started. Here you will see that I have the main screen here. This is an Android 14 product. So basically it's upgradable to Android 16. So it's future-proof. Basically, this is a 24/7 operation display, commercial display. It's very robust, built tough, and it has all the connectivity that you would need to do your external devices, such as a mini PC or a laptop or anything that you want to connect to it through HDMI or through the USB-C in a classroom where a teacher might have like a Chromebook or something like that. They can connect directly to this product. We also have high brightness of 500 nits and also 25% high haze for anti-glare screen, so that if you put this next to the window, basically your image will not be washed out. It'll be nice and clear. It's also 4K, so that morning announcement, emergency alert, or any content that you put on screen, like video, will be sharp and clear in terms of display resolution. So let me start off with the AirSync to show you the capability of casting. So this is built in, it's free. You do not have to purchase any additional software. Basically, we support Android, we support iOS, we support Miracast. So basically like a Windows PC with Miracast capability, you can project it to the screen here. So when you turn this on, you put it to AirSync, it will show you the display code. So you can go to a website that you can cast from a website if you want to, or you can use our app by scanning the code here, the QR code. You scan that onto your phone or your device, and then you can connect. So let me demonstrate that. So currently right now, I have my iPhone here. So I'm gonna go to AirPlay since it's an iOS device. I will click on my AirPlay, and then I will choose the device, which is an AirPlay 23115. And then it should ask me to basically accept or not accept here. So I will accept my screen resolution here. screencasting. So now it works like a regular casting device now. So you can see what's on my phone. If I go to my browser, you can see my browser. It also automatically switched rotation. You can see here, it's in landscape mode, or I can be in portrait mode. So depending on how you want to present your screen, you can be in portrait or in landscape, and will automatically do the rotation for you. Depending on your setup on your phone, of course, you have to have auto rotation on your phone. If you don't, basically, you have to turn that on, because if you want to go to landscape and portrait, you have to switch it accordingly. So like I said, this has a built-in mirrorcast. So you don't need to go into your network or anything like that. When you have the built-in mirrorcast, you can project anything from your laptop as a peer-to-peer connection for casting. So that's one of the secure way to cast. So you don't have to worry about tying into your corporate networks or your campus network. Basically, IT can do a peer-to-peer casting for you setup. So once you finish with the casting, you can go back to the main menu here. And then we have other applications such as Manager. So Manager is a device management software that you can remote access to the display from anywhere around the world. So basically, you just need a browser. You go into the myviewboard.com, you select Manager, and then you can manage the device from there. So in terms of management, you can do power on off, you can change input, you can do scheduling, things like that you can do on the browser itself. So you don't need a special app for it. Once you register the device, you can see the device, and now you can set a schedule for turning it off at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., weekdays or weekend. Things like that can be done. You can also change the volume. You can change the input. So in case, like, for example, the IT guys want a specific software to run on the unit, they can do that. Basically, they can set profile to the unit and distribute to a single group or all of the display at the same time. So if you're managing like 5,000 of these, you don't want to do one by one, right? So basically, you can push content to those 5,000 units. It has a built-in what we call Manager Advanced capability for broadcasting, so that you don't have to have a separate CMS software to do like basic digital signage. So you can push video, you can push YouTube, you can push website, you can push any content media that you want to go in there. You can set the time, you can push it. You can do so. You can also do portrait or landscape. So if the display is capable, like the CDE31 series that's capable of portrait mode, you can send portrait capability to that display, and then it will automatically show as a portrait content. And also at the same time, for Manager Advanced, you can do emergency or what we call urgent broadcasting. It ties to the third-party CAP system, like InfoCast, meaning that if you have an emergency alert on the campus, there's a fire or there's a drill that you want to shoot out to the display or all the display, a single display, or to a classroom, you can do that with our Manager Advanced capabilities.
Thank you for that. It was a lot of information, so I just want to make sure we're kind of breaking it down a little bit, because you talked about Manager Advanced, and then you also mentioned digital signage. So I wanted to lean in a little bit more on the CMS, the built-in CMS applications. Which ones are uploaded right now currently in that CD that you're sitting in front of?
Yeah, sure. Let me go through that. So that's the Manager Advanced that we have from ViewSonic, which is a cloud-based subscription model. We also have others currently right now, third-party partners that we certified with. Currently, we have Rebel Digital, which is preloaded into our the CDE31 series, but you also can load in other certified CMS like Navari, AppSpace, NoviSign, TSN Networks. Anything that is Android product software can be loaded to our Manager store. And then from the store, you can push that application to our CDE31 series. So very easy for you to install application on the manager push.
So about the digital signage apps, so you just mentioned like Revel, AppSpace, Navori. So those are already preloaded, it sounds like, into the commercial display that you're in front of. So I'm just curious, like to manage content, do you need an external like device, or how does that work? And kind of what's the benefit of having those applications inside the display?
Since this is an all-in-one Android smart display, you have the embedded SoC and the CPU and the memory installed. Basically, you can load any application you want that's on the Android side. That is a sign, which means that you cannot just go to the Google Play Store and download it and just install it. You would have to have it signed by ViewSonic. And then once it's been signed, basically now you can install the software for Manager. From software point of view, it's a great feature because now you don't need an external media player, right? So in terms of these applications, basically you have to have an Android-based platform. And in order for you to do that, the hardware has to support that. So if you do not have a built-in SoC with Android, you cannot load in the application, and it will require external media player to do that. So with this product, the CDE31 series, you do not need external media player to run the software. It's built in. So it's very easy for you to play or launch the software. So I'm going to demonstrate that here.
And I think you brought up a really good point, right? Because you don't need that external device to manage content. So it sounds like it's very easy to deploy, especially if you're deploying like multiple displays across campuses or different buildings, right? And then you kind of mentioned, I'm sure there's like a price and security aspect to that as well, of not needing an external device. Is that correct?
Yeah, so with external devices, you would need basically tie into the network. You have to make sure it's secure, depending on if it's a wide or Wi-Fi, depending on the OS to see if it's very secure or not, right? So Android basically have two versions. You have the consumer side, and then you have the commercial side. Consumer is more like more vulnerable because customer can load in any application they want. It's not like basically like for the commercial side, we have to make sure it is safe to be for those software to be loaded on our product before we even allow you to load that. So if you're using external devices, you're just in that ecosystem where you will be relying on the third-party media player security, right? So if it's not secure, basically it can be hacked into. So those are the things that are the concern. And at the same time, since it's external, people can just remove it, right? Or disable the HDMI cable, and then you don't have an image, and then you're gonna have a lot of customer support call, right? When it's built in all in one, you don't have to worry about those type of a scenario.
Got it. Thank you for that. And then I think you were gonna demo that, right, for us?
Yes, I'm going to show you basically Revel that's been pre-installed here. So basically, we set this up already. You just have to press the OK button on the remote. Once you select the Revel, it will show up. The first initial thing that you would do is to basically, you have to activate the device, right? So this display is considered the device. Revel will show up with a code. You scan that code to their website, and then you activate the device. Once you activate the device, you can set your schedule of what to play. So basically, you can do it from a playlist. Revel support many content format. So it has widgets for like YouTube, RSS feed, database, or conference room booking. Things like that can be done with Revel. And it's also cloud-based, so you're not tied into an application on your desktop. You can just use your regular web browser. You log in from your web browser, so it can work with your Mac OS. It can work with your iPhone. It can work with your Android, or basically any devices that support browser-based capability. you can log into your account and push content to this display. So to any display in that matter. Since it's cloud-based, you can go from one to many. And also you can do grouping on the device. So like you have classroom A, classroom B, or classroom C, office 1, office 2, and then you can create like devices for those group, and then you can push to those group of display and content. So like I said, many content are supported, even website and PowerPoint can be supported here. So if you have a presentation deck that you want to show, you can on the fly, you can just push that, and now you can see the PowerPoint on the screen. So very unique way in terms of displaying the content for more advanced capability. It also have the emergency cap system. So it ties into your federal and state emergency alert, like FEMA for like weather and stuff like that. So if you do have like issue emergency from your state or federal government, it will show on screen. It will interrupt the content and it will show that alert on screen. Nothing for you to do. It's automatic, and you can also do manual. Basically, with a manual push of the emergency alert, you can do that too. So that's where the uniqueness of Revel Digital, since it's a full-fledged commercial display for digital signage platform, it will allow you to do that. So very easy. If you want to get out from Revel Digital and use another application, you can do that. You can press the home button on the remote here. Now you can go back to your launcher. And here from the launcher, we have other things like settings, Chrome, Manium, which is the browser. So if you have a web app that you want to load from your server, basically you can do that. So you can just set a URL to the browser, and then next time when you load the browser, it will automatically load that web page for you. There's also folder here. It's basically a file manager where you can load local content that you copy to the system. The display has a 32 gigabyte of storage. So basically you can copy videos, picture, music. You can create a playlist, and then you can do our USB media playback so that you don't have to subscribe to like a basic slideshow capability. It can do that for free. So basically with the file manager, you can load in the playlist and then automatically will load your content. So the other things that we have here are kind of like the vSweeper. So that's just basically a software that makes sure the system is clean. It won't get bloated every day. That will wipe the memory so that basically the system is meant to be 24 hours. So it's always on. So usually on kind of like an operating system, you would have to do some housekeeping in order for the system to be optimized for running every day and 24 hours. So we have a software that can do that. So that is basically the demo for all the software for digital signage piece.
Thank you for showing us that demo and kind of like how to push out content through the built-in applications. And I think that proves very valuable, especially for digital signage. Again, like across multiple departments or campuses, and making sure that that unified message is being sent, whether it's for your employees or for your people, and kind of just making sure that we're all being connected and collaborating together in a more unified way. Thanks for that, Brian. I wanted to shift gears a little bit because you did show us about the digital signage piece, but I kind of wanted to talk about the larger ProAV ecosystem a little bit. And, you know, this was actually one of the questions we just got while you were demoing, like, do we have any certifications or integrations right now, our commercial display?
Great question. Yes. The CD31 series is ProAV compatible and certified. So basically for control AV system, we do have Q-SYS. Basically we're certified for that. I think Geno, our partner, would talk to that. We also have compatibility with Crestron, CC version 1 and version 2. Basically version 2 is the latest certification that we will be getting, and that will be at a later date. Extron, we're certified already, and also AMX. So the only certification left that we need to wait on that is pending is the Crestron. But in terms of a control system, we have everything that you need for any infrastructure. So from controlling the device power on off, we have drivers for those platform. And uniqueness of our product is we do have standard RS-232 port, which is a 9-pin port. It's not the 3.5 adapter type. Basically tie into any legacy system that you have out there. And we also support LAN control. So basically our RJ45 has LAN capability for controlling the device through Crestron or Q-SYS for those. And we also have our own software that we can do simple control system through RS-232C code. So mainly power on off, volume, input, things like that can be done for the ProAV side. Another key things that we add for ProAV integration and system integration is our what we call daisy chain capability. So these displays can basically have HDMI in and HDMI out. You can go up to 9 display on any sizes, so 43-inch all the way to 98-inch. You can daisy chain, or you can do a basic video wall up to 3x3. And also we have PIP, which is picture-in-picture. So a good example of that is when you use the digital signage piece, you can add another source to be displayed, like a live TV from a set-top box or something like that through HDMI that you can display at the same time. Or you can do a BP, which is picture by picture. You can split the screen. So one side can be one content from the Android side and another from an HDMI or USB-C side. So very great features in terms of ProAV compatibility features. And at the same time, like I said, we do have 3 HDMI input and 1 USB-C. So 4 actual input devices can be tied to the display itself. So you can switch back and forth on existing devices that you want to go to, like maybe a team room or something like that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it sounds like it's a very robust commercial display. I mean, you kind of talked about like all the different ports, and then also that, you know, it could be integrated with your existing meeting room setup for that larger ecosystem. I think this is a great transition, actually, to bring our special guest from Q-SYS on. Hey, Geno.
Hey, Mina, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for joining us, especially right before the holiday season. But yeah, do you want to just give an intro to our audience?
Yeah, so my name is Geno Zaharie. I'm a Senior Director of Alliances and Ecosystem, and I get to work with great partners like ViewSonic to create integrations with our full stack AV platform. So I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. I mean, yeah, if you can just kind of walk us through about the certification we have with you guys and what that means, that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be using some slides to kind of illustrate our conversation. You can move on to the next slide if you will. I guess we should start a foundation of like what is Q-SYS, and you might hear this term out there called the full stack AV platform. And we're an audio, video, and control platform, but what a full stack AV platform means is we're trying to, or we're in the process of creating a central system, right, that is extremely scalable, that can meet all of your audio, video, and control needs. And usually that starts with basically unifying the place, and the place being the campus, the enterprise building, and whatnot, to deliver a consistent experience in the spaces that are within those places, right? And then, of course, working with the devices that are in that space, in that place. When you do that, this introduces a very much of an adaptable place that can move at the speed of software, because we are really a software-centric platform. And this involves the business with a basically no rip and replace strategy moving forward. So if you kind of go back to our modular model, if you will, and you look at the AV platform itself, the Q-SYS AV platform, or the Q-SYS OS, we kind of surround ourselves. We make peripherals as well. Peripherals meaning devices, things that are manufactured by Q-SYS, cameras, amplifiers, processors, microphones, speakers, AV distribution technology. So those are products that we make, but of course we need to fill the gaps and stuff we don't make. Q-SYS Open is another tenant in this full stack AV platform that allows third parties to integrate with Q-SYS. It's only because we're built off of a very much of an open platform using open protocols. And I think we're kind of known for that. You can do anything with Q-SYS if you put your programming mind to it. Then we have Q-SYS partners, and Q-SYS partners are folks like ViewSonic that have invested in Q-SYS to actually make that process easier, all right, and more dynamic by creating software. And I'll get into that in a moment. So go ahead and flip to the next slide, if you will. Cool. So if you were to look at that middle square, the AV platform, right, the Q-SYS full stack AV platform, we have what we call the cognitive cloud. And I'll talk about our Reflect service that we have and how ViewSonic plays in that. But that's what's collecting all of the information about how we use these spaces and places. What we're working with, what buttons are we pushing? When does a sensor know we've walked into a space, right? All of that information is being captured so that we can tell our end users, how we actually operate and how we use the space. The intelligent layer that lives in the middle of our system is called the Q-SYS operating system, Q-SYS OS. And then, of course, the multimodal I/O are all the things that we see and touch when we go into these spaces. And ViewSonic kind of fills that gap in a sense that, digital signage or video on screens or through projectors is what we see most often, right? When we're walking down the hallway or we're actually in a conference room or we're in that boardroom. Pretty exciting. You can go into the next slide there. So we call it the Q-SYS ecosystem, and these are our partners. And I'm excited to announce that ViewSonic has had now plugins in our library for quite some time. Of course, the topic of today, right, the commercial displays and whatnot. And then also you have an awesome plugin for our projectors. Or for your projectors. And these are the things that Q-SYS can control, meaning you have an API that we've written software to that allows for easy implementation of those devices, wherever they might be in the campus or in the enterprise. But let's break down what a control plugin is so this will start to make sense. So you can go to the next slide, please. Cool. So in this illustration, it's an eye chart. The red box, right, is the projector. And we'll just use a projector. We could use it as a display in this scenario, but we're just going to use the projector. It's a smaller picture to fit on the slide. In the blue box is actually the plugin, right? And that plugin is running on a Q-SYS processor, a Q-SYS core. There's an API for that projector that was exposed to Q-SYS, and ViewSonic wrote a little mini application. This application is then loaded on the core, which talks to the API of the projector. And the most common or the most neat thing we can do is expose what we call control pins. And the most common pin on a device like that would be maybe the on button, right? I want to conserve electricity at night, but when the space gets used, I need to turn it on. So I got to be able to control that on button, just like the remote control, right? But instead of using a remote control, we can automate that. And if we use another third-party plugin, let's say a sensor on the black box, right? And that pin that's exposed on that is motion. So if there's something that happens, someone walks in, I want to tell that projector to turn itself on. And we do that through automation, through logic blocks. And it's very, very simple. When a plugin is in the hands of a Q-SYS programmer, to just connect two pins and put some logic if and when these things happen, make this action take place. Just like if I wanted to turn on the display, of course, we have tactile, touch controllers that allow you to turn things on and off, right? But that automation is where really where the magic happens. And if I were to go upstream a bit, I walk into a building and I swipe my badge and it knows I'm in the building and it knows that I've booked a room, right, 22B, and I'm going to make my way up to that. So why not now turn on the lights in the hallway, turn on the digital signage from our friends at ViewSonic as I make my way into that room. Now that projector is warmed up for me to plug my laptop in. So you can kind of see how control plugins talk to plugins, other plugins, and that's the Q-SYS ecosystem. You can go ahead and move to the next slide if you will. Cool. So target use cases, and you can only imagine wherever there's a projector or displays, right? They're everywhere. They're the most common thing that visually we see when we go into these really high impact spaces, right? Or what we call high performance workplace. So everything from high impact, conference rooms to boardrooms to training rooms to meeting rooms, huddle rooms, right? And the spaces in between, the hallways I mentioned earlier, all of those are delightful experiences that I can enhance, right? If I actually employ this automation scheme and have things talk to one another. And we do that through the Q-SYS platform. You can go on to the next slide, please. All right, so in this use case, it's normally a GIF, and so we'd see some action here. But imagine a big room that we have 4 really awesome big screen displays from our friends at ViewSonic, and the person that's standing in the middle of that slide says, I want to close this divider. Well, we're kind of known for making what we call divisible spaces, and when I do that, right, the meeting room that I'm in needs to become into 2 different spaces. So the screens on the left, right, have maybe a Teams room system or a Zoom room or a Google room system running. Well, in the room B, I need it to be ready for maybe a meeting's going to start in 15 minutes. So let's put up some digital signage from the ViewSonic platform, right, until then. But meanwhile, we're also having to migrate microphones over. We need to take those speakers in those rooms and divide them. So all of that gets automated, right, through the simple direction of me just closing a divider partition, and the contact closure triggers everything to happen. Control plugins allow that automation to take place without a lot of heavy programming. And ViewSonic's right in the middle of that because we need to get those video sources routed to the right area when needed. So you can go to the next slide there if you wouldn't mind. So back to our conversation around that cognitive cloud. I know that there's ViewSonic's Manager, right, to manage your state of displays, to be able to do updates and to make changes and whatnot. But through the plugins that are available for both the display and the projector, you're part of this Reflect Cloud environment from us. So we know when things are on and off. We know what video input things are on. And so from that information, you're able to monitor and manage your displays from the lens of Q-SYS, right? From the Q-SYS operating standpoint, because they're not just looking at, of course, the display inputs and outputs, but everything else that's happening in that space or in that place. It's a great service. It just kind of comes along with the plugin, and it's as simple as just enabling a toggle in your Q-SYS design to manage these displays. And we're going to get status information about their health. Are they on? Are they off? Right? Are they on the right input that was required in that automation scheme? So go ahead and go to the next slide, and this will be my last one. To get these plugins, we offer a new library called the Q-SYS library, and this replaced Q-SYS Asset Manager. This library is tied into Q-SYS Designer, which is our design tool, and this is how you deploy these plugins in a Q-SYS design. And it's as easy as just checking them out. When I check those assets out, they are put into a personal folder, and then they will end up in my Q-SYS Designer file folder, so I can use them over and over and over again. Little note, if I have, let's say, 100 displays, I'm going to use this plugin 100 times, right? Because each of those plugins are going to have a different property setting depending on its use case. So that's the flexibility and the scale in which you can deploy, right, ViewSonic displays with Q-SYS using the plugin format versus, right, Lua coding or programming that people historically have heard about regarding ProAV systems and working with third-party devices. So really excited, and go check it out. It's at library.qsys.com, where you can go and download the plugin and check it out. So some great help notes in there and some release notes that talk a little bit more about the technology behind it. So hope that was helpful.
Yeah, no, that was super helpful. Thank you, Geno. I really like how you kind of explained the plugin and how everything talks to each other, all the devices. And it's really, right, to help our customers being set up for success. So really making sure that meeting room setup is seamless, whether it's for audio, control, video. So thank you for that. That was awesome. I'm going to bring on Shane Roma. So he's also part of our ViewSonic team, and he's going to kind of talk about this integration. I know this was kind of specific to our commercial display, but he's going to kind of talk about how it applies to all of our ViewSonic solutions here.
All right, thanks, man. Hey, good to see you. Good to see you, Geno, as well. So yeah, just kind of wanted to quickly come on and just talk about how our solutions, like we've been saying, they don't exist in isolation, right? They only exist as part of a larger AV ecosystem, including folks like Q-SYS. Now, I've had the benefit of knowing Geno for many years, including in a past life, setting up Q-SYS with that company as well. One of the differences between there and ViewSonic was different APIs for different products, which means we had to do a lot of different integrations. However, ViewSonic, we look at things of, okay, how can we make things as easy as possible? And so one of the ways we do that through our ProAV integration is through our control system API, which is actually consistent across our commercial displays, our direct view LEDs, as well as our interactive flat panels. So whichever ViewSonic display you're using, it's actually going to be that same plugin with that same API. So we're trying to make it as easy to use as possible. The ProAV integration is something we do take very seriously here, which is why we appreciate our partnership with folks like Geno and Q-SYS so much, because of how we exist in that ecosystem and trying to make it as easy as possible, right, for you to use it in that space. So I just wanted to come on and just kind of talk about that, how Q-SYS has made it a lot easier to do things like that. And whether you're using our manager software to manage just our displays, or whether you're using Q-SYS Reflect to manage the entire space at whole, kind of gives you those options and that flexibility when you're working with all of our displays, whether it's direct view LED, whether it's CDE, or whether it's the interactive flat panels.
Yeah, thank you, Shane, for that. And like Shane mentioned, yeah, we just want to reiterate that we're really trying to make it seamless and be part of the larger ProAV ecosystem, so that all our devices can kind of talk together, allowing for that meeting efficiency, meeting room setup, or for digital signage as well. I am going to now transition to Q&A. So I'm going to bring everyone back on. I do have a few questions here from the audience. So this might be a question either for Shane or Brian about the CDE series and kind of, what makes a commercial display a commercial display? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I can answer that, Mina. So commercial display is different from consumer TV. One is basically the warranty, right? We have upfront 3 years. We can extend it all the way to 7. Basically, another feature is the reliability. We can guarantee 24/7, meaning that 24 hours per day for 7 days a week. And we can also have basically the backlight of the display. The backlight is an important factor because that will determine when the display goes off or when it dims. We have a minimum hours of 50,000 hours on our backlight system for 24/7, and for 16/7 is 30,000 hours. The robustness and the tough build is the key, because if you look at a consumer TV, it's more kind of like a design bling bling type of product, right? For commercial display, it's basically ruggedized, so basically it has a built from metal cabinet, so it can be very strong and tough. Basically we have uniform bezel width, basically for tiling capability, and the depth is pretty thin for like that ADA compliant needs for 4 inches or less. And we also have some series like the G3 series that's made from Mexico for TAA compliant product for federal government. So those are kind of like the key feature or benefits from a consumer versus a commercial display type of product.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in real quick too. So I've been in this industry an unfortunately long time, and that's always the biggest thing that comes up, right? Why don't I just run a Best Buy? Why don't I just run a Costco and buy a couple $100 TV and hang it up? And it will work maybe initially, but like to Brian's point, a commercial display is really designed to live in public commercial environments, be on all the time, right? And it's made for that, versus if you've ever gone, I mean, how many times have you gone to either a public space or a bar, things like that, and you see hot spots on the display, or you see these other issues with it? Those are the things you don't get with a commercial display. So when your business is on the line, when you're charging for content from ads, or whether you just want to make sure that your customers are seeing the information when you want to see it, that's when you really need to look at something like a commercial display, because it's going to be much more robust. Yeah, there's going to be a higher initial cost, but it's going to be much easier to integrate. A lot of consumer displays as well aren't going to be compatible with things like Q-SYS, right? They're not going to have the RS-232, their IP control that's going to be able to control it. It's going to be more IR control. So there's a lot of things that it's just, yeah, it's a little higher on the front end, but it's going to pay dividends on the back end of just easier to support, easier to install a lot of times, and it's going to have a much longer lifespan than what you're going to get off the shelf at like a retail store.
Gotcha.
I have to add
Yeah.
one thing back to
Yeah.
Shane's point around the API that he mentioned. I mean, you have probably the cleanest API that's around. That, of course, is coalesces with these commercial displays, and without it, we wouldn't be able to possibly turn it on and off, right? So from an IR repeater, but this allows us to really get deep into the full functions of the actual display. And take advantage of things like onboard digital signage, as well as maybe the various different HDMI inputs on the display. So hats off to you guys for putting together a wonderful API. So
awesome, thank you. I know we're coming a little short on time, so I think we'll just answer one or two more questions here. Someone did ask, are the CD series certified for Zoom and Teams?
Okay, I will take that question. So Teams and Zoom, they do not certify display only. It's an ecosystem that they certify for like maybe the compute engine, which is the PC running the platform, or the touch control, basically like a 10-inch. But with our commercial display, it will work with any ecosystem. So if it's a Team or Google Meet or a Zoom platform, it doesn't matter as long as it has HDMI capability. And if the display has HDMI CEC, which we support, or Wake on Sync for the display to go power on and off, or for like a quick boot up. So when you walk into a room, the touch controller will sense who's there, turn on the display automatically. That's the thing that will be needed for that commercial display product. If the display product does not do that, like a consumer TV, then that's not a choice, right? So you have to stick with a commercial display product that support HDMI CC and Wake on Sync and the LAN control, which our CDE31 series are certified for.
Yeah, and I'll give two quick plugs. One, we do have MTR certified products, by the way. So if you did need a compute, we do have those. But then we also have a series of CDEs that are made for those video conferencing applications. If all you want to do is have an input to it and you don't need the applications, and you just want quick startup and you just want to switch the input for an MTR or Cisco or Zoom or etc. rooms device, we do have displays as well that are focused on that with the G series. So we have both, depending on what you're prioritizing.
Yes, thanks for that shameless plug, Shane. Kind of plugging in our G series there. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining our webinar today. Just as a reminder, we will be sending out the recording tomorrow as an email to all registrants. So if you missed it or if you want to forward it to a colleague, it will be in your inbox by end of week. And yeah, just stay updated. Come visit us at ViewSonic.com. We'll be having more webinars early next year as well. And so we wish everyone a happy holidays and a happy new year. Thank you, everyone.